out what's going to happen tonight with so much to cover across the state, not just only at the statewide level, but also so many different local races. We are going to have you covered with all the results as they're coming in. Polls just closed about 4 minutes or so ago here in Texas, so we should start seeing some of those numbers come in soon.
Yes, and we will be hanging out with you all right up until those polls close completely here on KXAN Plus, and then you can catch the rest of our coverage on broadcast on KXAN. But tonight we're going to be discussing some of certain topics about the big decisions voters are making, statewide propositions, local measures, and what they could mean for your taxes, schools, water, public safety, and even dementia research. We've got a lot to cover, and I'll be joined throughout the night with some of our local and state reporters, as well as some special guests. This is your space to get informed, ask questions, and hear what's at stake before the results start rolling in. And once the polls close, we'll hand things off to our evening team for that full coverage. But Will, let's get started. We have some key races here that I do want to touch on that we will be looking and tracking throughout the night. We have Austin's Prop Q, lots of Texas props, the U.S. House 18 that will be giving us a little discussion on. And then we have Kyle Mayer, Pflugerville Mayer, Manor ISD props, Hayes CISD props, Taylor ISD props, and then we have a full list of all of our races and coverage on that we'll be scrolling throughout the night.
And I just want to highlight really quickly, those ones on the left side of your screen there, those Texas propositions, there are 17 of them on the ballot, and every voter here in Texas is weighing in on those. They are proposed constitutional amendments. They are resulting from legislation that was approved earlier this year during the regular legislative session. And now it's up to voters to see whether or not they are actually enacted. So we are paying close to so many of these. They range in importance from about property taxes here in the state to water infrastructure to parents' rights to funding for dementia prevention and research. It's a lengthy list, so we're going to try to go through those and cover them as comprehensively as possible throughout this live stream tonight.
Yes, well, we do have a guest here with us in the studio already. I'm going to pull up our studio cam so you can see what it's looking like here. We have our streaming producer here, Margaret Grisby, and then we have a special guest, Will, who's with us tonight.
We are joined by Jeremy Mazer. He is with Texas 2036. It's a policy nonprofit here in the state. And Jeremy, I know that you have a lot of eyes on Proposition 4 in particular, and that was about additional investment into water infrastructure and improvements and creating a sustained pipeline of funding for that. What's your stance on that, and what are you looking to see tonight?
So it sets stage on Proposition 4. It sets up a dedicated revenue stream where the legislature is proposing to amend the Texas Constitution to dedicate $1 billion per year for the next 20 years towards a Texas Water Fund. And this way it could be used to expand and diversify our water supply portfolio, fix aging, deteriorating drinking water and wastewater systems, and build flood protection. Now, at Texas 2036, we've done some polling in Proposition 4, and we saw some headwinds with the ballot language, where it's not exactly clear that the legislature is proposing to amend the Texas Constitution to dedicate funding for water infrastructure. So the ballot language gave us some headwinds, and our initial polling showed that voters weren't quite certain on what to think about Proposition 4. But what we found was that once voters learned more about what Proposition 4 does, what it means for our water future, we saw support getting north of 70%. We're really hopeful to see that result tonight.
I mean, we did see just a short time ago the Texas Water Fund created. Voters out there approved it. So you would think that maybe this particular initiative would have more support because that one was approved. But what do you think about that, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's right, Will. 2 years ago on this night, voters approved Proposition 6 that created the Texas Water Fund and dedicated $1 billion, a one-time deposit into that water fund for $1 billion. We saw voters strongly say yes for Proposition 6. We had over 77% of voters, a record number of voters showing up to support water. We think that the water concerns and the water challenges haven't really gotten better since 2023. And so there's likely going to be a lot more support that we hope to see tonight when it comes to Proposition 4.
Okay, so talk to us again about why this is such an important thing for the state to be able to dedicate even more money towards improving water infrastructure and even finding some of those new sources in the state.
Yeah, we have to start by looking at the numbers. From our research at Texas 2036, we see that the state is going to have to invest at least $154 billion over the next 50 years on expanding our water supply portfolio, fixing aging, deteriorating systems. And then there's also another $54 billion that we need to invest on flood protection, which is certainly important given the disaster we saw in the Hill Country this July. So we need to invest $154 billion, but we don't really have a reliable, consistent state plan to finance that $154 billion in infrastructure need. What's so important about Proposition 4 is for the first time in state history, we'll have a reliable, consistent, dedicated state financial strategy oriented towards solving Texas' long-term water infrastructure problems.
Okay, as we await those results, at least some of the early voting numbers coming in, as we mentioned, the polls have closed for Election Day about 10 minutes ago, so stay with us. We're going to be trying to dip in and show you some of the latest numbers as soon as they are available. And Jeremy, as you're awaiting some of those results and the numbers come in, I understand the anticipation is there, but what was it about the ballot language that might have turned off or perhaps confused Texas voters out there? What was it about that from your own research?
The ballot language said, if I remember pulling from memory, it said dedicating a portion of state sales and use taxes to the Texas Water Fund and allowing the legislature to make appropriations therefrom. It wasn't really clear to your average reader that what this really did was dedicate $1 billion per year to the Texas Water Fund, where it can be used on the water infrastructure projects that we need. It wasn't really clear in that ballot language.
And we were just doing research about Proposition 4. And again, there are 17 constitutional amendments. This is not the only one that we'll be tracking this evening. But on Proposition 4, half the money, if this should pass, would fund new water supply sources, while the other half would be spent fixing old infrastructure and building out new. And I think, Jeremy, you and I have talked multiple times on some of our other newscasts about how much water is lost in the state because of old infrastructure. Can you recall some of those really eye-popping numbers and details?
Yeah, there's a lot of statistics out there that point to the need for Proposition 4. One has to do with the amount of water that we leak every year. Will our aging, deteriorating drinking water and wastewater systems leak 572,000 acre feet per year? And for reference, that's about enough water to fill Lake Buchanan here in Central Texas once a year. And then we have other issues, such as the fact that we have a long-term water supply deficit of 6.9 million acre feet over the next 50 years if we're hit by a long, severe drought and we don't have enough water supplies. What I'd like to point out is that in February, when Governor Abbott tasked the legislature with making a Texas-sized investment in water infrastructure, the legislature certainly delivered by submitting Proposition 4 to the voters. But one of the big concerns and one of the big policy debates that was pretty exciting to see this session was that the legislature really wanted to prioritize water supply development. And that's why we see this requirement that at least 50% of these dedicated funds go towards building the water supplies that a growing Texas needs in the long run.
And if you are just joining us, we appreciate you being a part of our live streaming coverage of election night and results. We'll get some numbers hopefully soon. I'm going to send it over to Esme in just a moment to see if we have some of those. But my name is Will Dupree. We have Esmeralda Zamora here and Jeremy Mazer with the nonprofit Texas 2036. He's kind enough to join us here to kick things off and talking about at least one of the consequential constitutional amendments that is on the ballot and being decided tonight. So Esme, if you can, maybe see if some of those early voting numbers are coming in, because hopefully they will be at some point soon.
Yes, we just started the stream, so they may not be in, but let's take a look and see what our Proposition 4 numbers are looking like. So right now, we have a few numbers.
Okay, so we have some early numbers there, at least 17% in. And right now, the proposition is carrying support at least of a 72.3%. Jeremy, again, this number is early, but I know you were in support of this proposition. What do you think about that result so far?
This is a promising start that we're seeing from the early vote data and some of the results that are coming in statewide. The margins that we're seeing is incredibly inspiring and hopeful. I think it shows that Texans are prepared to make a Texas-sized investment in our water future, like Governor Abbott called for back in February.
Okay, and if these numbers hold, I mean, what difference in your opinion would this make for Texas?
I think if these numbers hold, and if Proposition 4 passes with well over 70% of the vote, it sends a very bright signal of the lengths that this state is going to do to keep the Texas economic miracle alive and to keep communities and families safe and secure in their homes with reliable water infrastructure. The message here is going to be extraordinary, not only for Texans, but I guarantee you other states in the nation are going to be paying heed as well.
Yeah, I was looking when I was researching Texas Prop for some of the numbers, and it says that we are expected to grow in population by 50% in 2080. How do you think this proposition could help that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we are going to have growing water demands over the next 50 years. We're a growing state. There's a lot of people that are excited to come to Texas, but the joke is that when they come here, they don't bring their water with them.
They don't.
They don't. And we also have this thing called the Texas economic miracle, where we're seeing an economic expansion across the board in semiconductors, manufacturing, automotive, space, energy, and even agriculture. All of these industries are good. They bring jobs and prosperity, but they need one critical ingredient to be successful, and that's water. And so the fact that we're having a reliable, consistent, long-term funding strategy in place to pay for this water supply infrastructure we need is a really good signal.
Yeah, and Esme, as we are continuing our coverage here, maybe we can circulate through some of those other constitutional amendments just to see what other early numbers are coming in. We want to make sure that we're hitting on all those for everybody. So just to remind you, Texas Propositions 1 through 17, that is something that every voter here in the state was voting upon. But we want to turn quickly to the city of Austin because there was also the Proposition Q, which is a tax rate election to raise property taxes to support some initiatives in the community here. And if we can maybe go back to that one, that would be great. We're circulating again through some of the other results that are popping up, including some of the independent school district propositions all across Central Texas that we are tracking this evening too. So
I'm having a little bit of trouble, but give me one
Okay.
second. Let me pull up that full list for
So
you.
everybody, this is a live streaming operation. We are live and in living color right now. So just bear with us as we are going through some of these results. And of course, we are wanting to bring that to you as soon as possible. Again, these are some of the key
There it
races. Yeah, so we'll go back to Austin Proposition Q. This is a tax rate election. And it is still early at this time, but the results show that most of the votes are coming in right now against this initiative. And I know our City Hall reporter, Grace Reeder, has been covering this particular election very, very closely since the very beginning, before it came onto the ballot. But just to remind you that the city leaders who brought this to the ballot and wanted voters to approve this, passage would generate roughly $110 million in new revenue each year to support what they called city core services, things like homelessness prevention programs, public safety, public health. And what they shared is that the average homeowner in Austin would see their property taxes go up by about $302 each year. That's, again, if this passes. But what our reporter, Grace Reeder, has shared is that even if this proposition fails, which at least these early numbers say it could lead to that direction, property owners would still see their property tax bill increase, but by about $104 or so on average.
The Austinites would see or approve a 20% increase in this property tax rate, right? For this race?
We'll have to get Grace Reeder to come in to provide some of that. And I know she'll be standing by live to share those results because there are some watch parties to see what happens with Proposition Q. And again, we have those 17 constitutional amendments that every voter here in Texas got to weigh in on during this particular election. So, Esme, do we have those numbers we can pull up at least?
Yes, we can pull up this scroller that's going to scroll through a few of the races.
Okay, we'll keep on rolling through those. So just, again, bear with us as we are continuing to show these results. They're still Austin's Proposition Q is up first. Kyle Mayer, voters there are deciding who will lead that city in that position. Pflugerville, you've got some votes coming in at least pretty early at this time. Manor ISD has some propositions, some bond proposals that families within that district are deciding. So there's props A, B, and C. We are still too early to show some numbers with that as we continue to roll through our results coming in. Hayes CISD has a measure on at Prop A. Taylor ISD has two propositions on the ballot, one bond, one tax rate election. And there you can see at least the tax rate election, Prop B, is having more in support of it. There we are, some of the constitutional amendments. So Texas Proposition 1 had quite a bit of support there. Texas Proposition 3, and then 4, as we mentioned, this is the water fund that will create new funding streams. So we've had our guest in here in the studio, at least for the first time, Jeremy Mazer with Texas 2036. And then, Jeremy, as we were seeing those numbers pass by just a few moments ago, again, you have shown your support for Proposition 4. You think it's needed for the state. So to see those numbers, I mean, it's quite lopsided at this time. At least it's early. But how do you feel about that?
The numbers looking good. We're north of 70%. It's still a long night to go.
Right.
But we're still seeing robust support from Texans on the need for water. I'd also like to point out that Proposition 1 was also passing at 70%. That created I think it was funding for the Texas State Technical College.
Correct.
A very important workforce development initiative on the ballot. And it's also good to see Proposition 1 getting strong support from Texans tonight.
Yeah, and just to reiterate about what Jeremy shared there, that's an amendment that would direct about $850 million in taxpayer revenue to the newly created Technical Institution Infrastructure Fund. It is a bit of a mouthful, but this goes to support technical vocation education and training for what could be the future of the state's workforce, potentially working on water projects out there, Jeremy.
Water workforce, don't get me started. We need more folks in our water sector. But we also see Proposition 1 as being a key part of the state's long-term workforce development goals. And so the fact that Texans are giving a green light to Proposition 1 and also Proposition 4 tonight makes us very bullish on the state economy moving forward.
All right. We will have to revisit our conversation with you to get your full reaction once all the results are in and we can project some of these constitutional amendments and their victories, at least at this point. So, Jeremy Mazer, thanks again for being with us here this evening.
Thanks so much for having me, Will. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And we're going to go to a quick break, but we'll leave some of those election cards scrolling up on your screen so you can see some of the numbers as they trickle in. But we'll be right back in about 5 minutes. Thanks for joining us. And we're back here taking a look at some of the races that we are following. And you just saw our guest who's in here, but of course it's our
spoiler there, yeah.
Dylan McKim. Thank you so much for joining us, Dylan. How are you doing tonight?
We finally have results to come in, so it's things are finally picking up here. We've just been talking about these propositions on the ballot for so long, and now we're finally seeing what Texans think of what's going on here. So, we're happy to talk about the early results we have going on coming in right now.
Yes, and we have you discussing Texas Props 1, Props 4, and Props 14. Those are your big races that you're following. What can you tell us about what you are hearing about Texas Prop 1 right now?
Sure. Texas Prop 1, just to remind our viewers what that is, this is to create an endowment for the Texas State Technical College. If you're not familiar with what that is actually a state agency. It's a college system that is responsible for vocational training, creating and educating these high-skilled trade workforce that we have here in Texas. So we think about Texas being this big economic state. We invite or we attract a lot of business to come in here. We're thinking of companies like Samsung, Tesla. When they come in here, of course, that creates jobs, but those are highly skilled jobs that need some vocational training, some certifications to actually work in. And so when I was actually touring the Texas State Technical College campus up in Williamson County in Hutto, Texas, and I was speaking with their government relations rep, and he was telling me that these businesses are telling them there's just not enough workers here in Texas to fill the job demand that they have. In fact, he estimates there's over 1 million open technician positions just in Texas alone. So how do we meet that need? This is something that Governor Greg Abbott made sure that it was a priority, that we boost career technical education in high school, at the college level. And one way to do that is to make sure that there are more students going through TSTC, the technical college. But the problem is, it's a community college-like atmosphere, but they're not allowed to have a bond election or to tax people around their area. So how do they get money? It's appropriated through the state. Well, they're looking for more money to come in. So what this proposition does, it would create an endowment fund for TSTC with an initial investment of $850 million from the General Revenue Fund. And that money, as it's being invested, will create some profit, create some income. A little portion of that income is going to go to another fund, which TSTC can pull from. And that money can only be used for capital projects. So that you think about capital projects, it's renovating existing buildings, it's buying new land, it's building new structures. And that's the goal here, is to expand the footprint of TSTC so that they can meet the demand that these new companies are bringing in for these highly skilled workforce. It's very popular, but we're seeing the votes come in that it is very popular among Texas voters. There was some opposition to this, and the opposition really comes down to some people are concerned, more conservative-minded people are concerned that there's not a lot of oversight when it comes to how this money is being used. If you think about the appropriations process, state lawmakers can decide, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure we're going to approve this project. We're going to approve this dollar amount. Boom, there you go. With this fund, there is no oversight per se. Like Texas lawmakers cannot actually approve or deny. But in talking in TSTC, they say, hey, if you don't like the fund, lawmakers in the future could actually pass another constitutional amendment to just get rid of the fund. So it appears, though, it looks like this proposition is doing just fine among voters. It looks they're 68% of the vote right now, with a little over 500,000 voters coming in. So, a very interesting proposition on top of the ballot there.
And Dylan, it really seemed like something like this, creating a fund like this, has been in the works, or something that the technical state college system really wanted for quite a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And because the Texas State Technical College has been around for a little over or around 50 years. It was started in the 60s. And you think about, they have campuses all over the state. The originating campus was in Waco, which was an old Air Force base. So some of their classrooms are in like these old hangars that were built in the 60s or even before then. So things are just kind of, they're not standing the test of time. You need to start revamping these things. And that's exactly what why the Texas Technical College has been asking for this endowment fund is because they want to provide better upgrades to their existing facilities and, of course, also building new facilities and growing the footprint.
And I want to just let everybody know that we are tracking results of all 17 of the constitutional amendments here in Texas on our website at kxan.com. If you really want to just see a breakdown of props 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. We just want to show some of the key races here during our live stream. We've touched on Proposition 1. Esme, if we can maybe show us some of those other results for people, because everyone here in Texas, at least all the registered voters, got to give their opinions about these particular initiatives. So maybe if we can circulate through some of those.
Yeah. We have our streaming producer here on with us to get these graphics ready for us. Dylan, another race that you are covering is Texas Proposition 4. We just had a guest here also talking about this, but what are some things that you're seeing regarding this race?
Yeah, I think Jeremy, he could probably do more justice than I can. That Texas 2036, they've been on top of this. They've actually did that study. I think he threw that number out there that they predict the state will need a $154 billion investment over the next 50 years for water infrastructure projects to find new water sources. I mean, it's the basis of life, right? Water is so important. We're having droughts here in Texas, and our population is growing. It seemed like a slam dunk when this was passed in the state capitol. You really couldn't find a lot of people who were against this idea of like, hey, should we invest more money in trying to find new water sources and making sure that our water pipes aren't leaking water into the ground? You know, it seems like a slam dunk, but I think, you know, in the weeks leading up to this, you just started hearing a little more pushback. You started hearing more conservative groups saying, hey, I don't really like the idea of having a constitutionally dedicated fund just for water. If we're going to have our state legislature meet every 2 years, then let's approve funding for the water fund every 2 years. Let's not dedicate $20 billion into over the next 20 years. I think I want to really hammer home this point for our viewers. We ask about like what is so important about amending the state constitution. It's a big deal. If I'll take, I want to talk about homestead exemption as an example. The reason that they passed homestead exemptions as a constitutional amendment is because it is hard to undo that. So basically, the lawmakers today say, look, we want to provide this tax benefit to Texas homeowners, and we want to make sure that when we're gone, I'm saying me as if I'm a lawmaker, once they're out of office, that another lawmaker, a new group of lawmakers can't just come in and undo it like that. To undo a constitutional amendment, it's the same process as adding one. The state legislature would have to come together and pass a joint resolution as a supermajority, so 2/3 of both chambers have to pass that, which then would have to go to the voters for them to approve. So if, as we saw, Proposition 13 is going to raise the homestead exemption from $100,000 to $140,000, you have a lot of Texas homeowners here who see that as a very popular thing, and the early results are showing, I think it was like 85% right now in the early polling results of people who approve Proposition 13. So that's why it's so important if you're going to say yes to adding $20 billion into the Texas Water Fund over the next 20 years, that's pretty much almost set in stone, because it is hard to undo that. And there's a reason why they want to make it hard, because they see it as it's important. The legislature passed this almost unanimously. It's very high bipartisan support. And that's why these constitutional elections are so important, because we are really writing history in here and baking something into our Constitution. And
the amendments that you were talking about there, particularly about homestead exemptions, are Propositions 11 and 13, and they are receiving strong support so far, at least from the early numbers we're seeing tonight.
Let's go ahead and look at those numbers on the big screen. What propositions were those?
11 and 13.
11 and 13.
Yeah.
So we have some numbers in
Wow.
for Prop 11.
Yeah, that's not surprising, right? So this one is actually for senior citizens, so Texans over the age of 65 and disabled Texans. That would increase their additional homestead exemption from $40,000 to $60,000. So we can say if you are a Texas senior over the age of 65, if Prop 11 and 13 pass, combining those two, you have a $200,000 homestead exemption. And if I remember correctly, for a lot of seniors in our state, that's actually more than the value of their home. So that's $0 on property taxes.
And that kept coming up during the debate, and particularly in the legislature, was that could happen if both of these things could pass. So again, that's Proposition 11. We also want to show you 13. Dylan, that also raises the homestead exemption for Texans.
Yes, yeah, and that's what I was talking about. That rate. So right now, Texas homeowners have a $100,000 homestead exemption that's already baked into our Constitution. This Prop 13, look at that, it's even better than Prop 11, 82.5%, almost approaching that million vote count right there. So it's still early, 34%, but when you see numbers like this, you can only imagine that this trend's going to continue as more votes come in. But yes, Prop 13, it is definitely, it will be popular among Texas homeowners, right? Here in Texas, we don't have a state income tax. We pay property taxes. And with affordability issues, a lot of lawmakers, when they go to the Texas legislature, what they campaign on is to cut your property taxes. And this is always something that's going to be revisited. You almost ask the question, when is enough enough? Like, when can we, how far can we go? That's always a question that comes up when this debate happens. But of course, Texans are very, they like this. They want to continue this. If this means a lower property tax bill, then why not? And they're showing their support right now.
Clearly, very much so. So another proposition that you're following is 14, Dylan. I know you've done a lot of reporting about this. And this would create something that the state already does, but for dementia prevention and research. So let's talk a little bit more about this effort to create DPRIT.
Yeah, this is. I think this is a really important initiative here. This was a priority from Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick at the beginning of the year. If you're not aware, Alzheimer's disease impacts a lot of Texans, whether you know somebody that has it, that's a friend or a family member. The Texas State Health and Human Services Commission last December actually issued a report where it said Alzheimer's disease is a public health crisis because it's rising here in Texas. Texans are getting older. I believe the number was more than 400,000 Texans over the age of 65 right now are living with Alzheimer's disease, which is one of the causes of dementia. So you mentioned it, Will. Texas already has CPRIT, which is Cancer Prevention Research Institute of Texas. Texas voters approved this back in 2008, and they also approved continuing it 10 years later. So that has actually shown what lawmakers had said. This has actually shown some good results, kind of a return on the investment, because it really has made Texas a worldwide leader in cancer research, trying to find new forms of treatment, attracting some of the top professionals in the field of cancer research to our state, creating more jobs. So lawmakers see CPRIT as a success, and basically what they did with DPRIT, they took the language in the CPRIT bill, they lifted it, and they copy and pasted it almost into the DPRIT bill. And so this is what it's going to do. DPRIT, if approved, would invest $3 billion over the next 10 years into this new state agency, DPRIT. And DPRIT's main goal is to issue grants to universities, research facilities, private companies. Let's find some new forms of treatment. Let's invest in trying to find ultimately a cure to dementia, and hopefully they start attracting more dementia researchers, and Texas can be one of the leaders. That's the hope in dementia research. And speaking with like the Alzheimer's Association, they talk about this is like a pivotal moment in dementia research. And I've met so many families that have been impacted, that have their mom, their dad, their grandparents all have some form of dementia, whether it's Alzheimer's disease. And it not only impacts that person, it really does impact that entire family. I mean, you are becoming a caretaker. If you can't afford to put your family member into a facility that can look after them 24/7, that's on you. That responsibility is on you to make sure that you are taking care of them. So I know it's touched a lot of people in the state legislature. I'm sure it touches a lot. I mean, we see the number, over 400,000 people just over the age of 65 dealing with this. It touched a lot of people. What are do we have numbers on that, Esme,
we
with
can
what
pull
Prop
those up.
14s looks like?
And Dylan, it's not only Alzheimer's, it's also Parkinson's and all other
Yeah.
neurodegenerative diseases, right?
Dementia, yeah. Anything to do with dementia, which, if you don't know, that's more of an umbrella term. There are many causes of dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, but it does look like, okay, 67.5%. So it is tracking and trending very well right now. There was some opposition to this. And the opposition, of course, is not going to say we shouldn't be doing this at all. In fact, it's like, yes, this is a noble cause. We should be trying to find a cure to a very nasty disease. But is it the best use of public tax dollars? Should the Texas taxpayer money be going toward paying for this research and trying to find new treatments, or should we rely on private investment? And so there was an interesting debate going on in the Texas House. Very few people voted against Texas Prop 14, or excuse me, I should say they voted against the bill that led to Prop 14. And it mainly was the case of like, should we be spending our taxpayer dollars on this, or should we rely on private investment?
And this whole time, we've been telling you and reminding you that there are 17 constitutional amendments that were on the ballot. And I was just looking at our results page at KXAN.com if you want to look just at results for all these different key races. And at least at this time, with the early numbers coming in, every single one of the constitutional amendments is on its path to passage. So we'll again keep tracking those for sure.
And again, these are the list of races that we are covering here on our live stream, a few of the Texas props and as well as Austin's Prop Q, and a couple mayoral races as well as some school district races as well. Dylan, thank you so much for joining us. Let me put us all on camera again.
Of course.
Thanks for joining us and for being here in studio with us. And we can see you on air after this live stream.
You will see my colleague Adam Schwager on air, but I will always be here. I'll be with Will on the 4 o'clock. I'm always around.
Well, thanks for joining us. And we're going to go to a quick break, but we will be right back. I'll pull up those election cards for everyone to see while we're in that break. Thanks so much for joining us, Dylan. And we're back here with our election live stream coverage. And one proposition that we want to talk about that we haven't gotten to yet is Proposition Q. This is a citywide ballot that is asking Austinites to approve a 20% increase in property tax rate, raising it from around 50 cents to about 50 cents per $100 of property value. If passed, it would generate about $110 million in new revenue for the city of Austin. Our reporter, Grace Reeder, is covering this race, and we are going to have her join us just a little bit throughout this stream. But Will, let's talk about Proposition Q. Let me bring those numbers up.
Yeah, we want to show everybody at home the numbers that we're getting in, at least so far. Again, polls closed just about 54 minutes ago. And from what we're hearing
Those
in our
numbers
newsroom,
are in.
yeah, and from what we're hearing in our newsroom too, that some people are still out there voting. Now we have to point out that if you were in line by 7 o'clock, you were still allowed to vote, which is amazing. And some of the poll workers there in Travis County are helping with that. So Austin Proposition Q, this is a tax rate election, and at the moment you can see that those who oppose this measure outnumber those who support it, at least with very early numbers in right now, Asmi.
Yeah, and this proposition affects every Austin resident, shaping the city's ability to respond to things like homelessness, public safety, and community needs, while also influencing the cost of living. Will, have you heard anything about the reaction to this proposition?
Yes, leading up to this, Grace Reeder has done a great job of highlighting kind of where both sides of this issue stood. It really seemed that more momentum and fundraising was coming in for those who oppose this measure. A lot of people criticizing a property tax hike right now when a lot of people in our community are concerned about affordability. And it looks like perhaps that argument has won out in these early numbers.
Yeah.
It's still at just 2% of the votes in right now, so we'll keep tracking that. But one thing that Grace highlighted in her reporting, and I think it's worth mentioning in this particular case, is that even if this proposition fails, property owners here in Austin would still see their property tax bill go up, but at a slightly smaller rate than if this had been approved. So if this had been passed tonight, and we could see numbers change at any point, then the city estimated that the average homeowner in Austin would see their property taxes go up about $302 each year. If it failed, property taxes are expected to go up still, but by about $105 or so each year for the average homeowner here in the city.
And would renters be impacted by this proposition?
Potentially. So obviously the property owner is responsible for paying those property taxes on that property. Mm-hmm. And so that could be translated into higher rent so that the property owner could meet that higher burden, that higher revenue to pay back to the city.
And another person or people that we should be thinking about is small business owners and those who own properties for their business out in the city.
Yeah, and I think that they've kind of weighed in throughout this process leading up to that. And as more numbers trickle in at this point, Austin's Proposition Q shows that there are more in opposition to it.
Yes, but right now we have a special guest in the studio again with our bureau reporter. We have here Adam Schwager. Adam, thanks so much for joining me. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I have to live up to what Dylan just brought here. So.
I have no doubt that you could do that. We see it every single day. But I know you and Dylan have been covering those constitutional amendments that every Texas voter had a chance to weigh in on during this particular election. There are 17 of them, and I'm not going to have you go through each one of those in quick succession. But one of the ones you were tracking, Adam, was Proposition 3, and that had to deal with denying bail for people accused of certain felonies. Talk to us a little bit more about that one.
Yeah, so that one was one of the governor's key items heading into this session. In fact, it was the second consecutive time that he had tried to bring up bail reform as an emergency item here. And what this does is it takes a certain classification of felonies, typically a lot of the ones that are violent or sexual in nature, and it's trying to make it easier for judges to deny bail. In fact, what this does is it requires bail to be denied if the judge finds with the preponderance of evidence that that person is a flight risk, or with clear and convincing evidence that that person would be a danger to the community. So there's some things that could play into that, including whether this person is a repeat offender, whether this person is not from Texas or not from the county, because obviously that would make them more of a flight risk. And as you can see right now on your screen, we're looking at over a third of the vote in, with it almost having a 2-to-1 margin. It's looking really good to be approved here. And the reason they had to do this was because in Texas's Constitution, there is a guarantee to the right of bail as of right now. So this is just carving out some limited exceptions in which that bail can be denied, because right now, the way the system works, if you're going to deny bail, you kind of have to do it on this rolling 60-day basis, where you have to keep coming back to court to re-deny bail for some of these serious offenders who people are worried that they're going to re-offend. That was one of the big issues that Abbott brought up this year.
Adam, what are some of the offenses that fall under these categories that can be denied bail?
Yeah, I don't have a list off the top of my head here, but we're talking about, you know, your aggravated assaults, your murders, rape. These are some of the more serious offenses, the ones that I think everyone can agree that if you were found guilty is something that is worth you being behind bars for. So obviously, one of the tensions here is trying to balance the nature of accusations, which can be false, and keeping these people in behind bars while they're waiting to have their full trial at the due process, while also trying to balance public safety. One of the things that was constantly brought up as we debated this was just how many people who had committed murders or had been accused of committing murders while already out on bail, specifically down in Harris County in the Houston area.
And the governor brought that up a lot, along with many of the Republicans who supported the legislation that led to this constitutional amendment being brought to the ballot. We want to go down the ballot just a little bit further. One of the propositions you're tracking, Adam, is Texas Proposition 15. Again, this is one of those constitutional amendments, and this one is getting a lot of support this evening from voters supporting that. But let's talk about what this one involves specifically.
Yeah, could you give me a brief reminder on that one?
Yeah,
sorry, there's so many numbers right now.
I know, and there are so many. Again, 17 that we're tracking. So this one is about parents.
Parental rights.
Oh, right. Yes, no, that parental rights one, I think, is one that people are specifically tracking here in Texas. It reaffirms that right. It is quite honestly a very simple amendment, just adding some text to the Texas Constitution. But I think it's one that a lot of people are interested in. People, I think right now especially, have been concerned with the agency or lack thereof that parents feel they have over their kids in the school systems. And I think a lot of those concerns ended up in this amendment, and in, as you can see, an even greater margin of 4 against. Almost 3/4 of voters, it looks like, are in support of this amendment. And right now, as I said, it really doesn't seem to have any direct policy impact. It certainly could be interpreted in certain ways, but it's just reaffirming the right that says parents are the person who is supposed to make the decisions for their children. And when it comes to the education system, it will be interesting to see if this actually plays out in some tensions over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and just to zoom out a bit, again, there are 17 of these constitutional amendments that were on the ballot. And according to our results that we're showing right now on KXAN.com in full, all 17 of them are on track to be approved here in Texas. So we'll, again, keep a look on those numbers. But Adam, I know that you are also tracking some of those tax exemption ones, particularly those applying to the homestead tax exemption. Let's talk about Propositions 11 and 13. Pick it up from where you'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, as Texas, we love to talk about taxes. 10 of these 17 amendments are in some way related to the tax code. And those two are the big ticket items, the ones that are going to affect most people. So right now, there's been a rising concern over the level of property taxes in the state, and it's been rising and rising. I believe Texas is in the top 10 in terms of the property tax burden on citizens. And there is no statewide property tax. These are all local property taxes that are being levied. So in recent years, they had increased a homestead exemption, meaning you get the first $100,000 of the taxable value on your home taken off that taxable value, and then you're only paying that tax on anything above $100,000. What this said is we didn't see the results that we wanted when we raised it the first time. A lot of times criticizing these local municipalities for raising their rates in conjunction with it. So we're going to increase it again to $140,000. And this is Proposition 13, and that's for all homeowners. So their primary residence, as you can't see right now, but there, as you can see, a lot of support for this.
Yeah,
everyone
just
loves
a little bit there. Yeah.
Everyone loves to see their property taxes go down a little bit, right? So $140,000, assuming that this passes, will that be the new threshold? One of the concerns that Democrats had, and that was assuaged in order to get them to vote on this, because you need a 2/3 majority in each chamber of the legislature to get this on the ballot. So all these things had to have some bipartisanship.
Right.
Is they made a hold harmless provision, which makes sure that those school districts are able to recoup any of that money from the state budget that they would have had if this law did not get put into effect. So what it really is doing is taking the burden from the property owners in that local area and shifting some of it and taking it out of the state budget and paying for those things instead. And then on Texas Prop 11, that's just an additional one right now. In addition to that homestead exemption of $100,000, what will soon be $140,000, there's also a special add-on for senior citizens and for those who are disabled. Senior citizens being those who are over 65 years or older. Right now, that extra is $10,000. So right now they have $110,000 of exemption. That's going to be raised to $60,000. So in a conjunction with that $140,000, you're now looking at a $200,000 homestead exemption for senior citizens. That means that your property value is going to have to be over $200,000 before you start paying any property taxes on it. A lot of senior citizens will, thanks to these two proposals, and as you can see, 80% in favor, will not have to pay any of these local ISD property taxes, because all of it will be eaten up by this property tax homestead exemption.
And those numbers, at least the early ones that we're seeing with 37% in, show a lot of support for that very measure.
Everyone likes this one.
Everyone likes to see their taxes cut. You know, in addition, as you mentioned, all 17, we have a couple of proposals out there to eliminate certain types of taxes, not to eliminate them, but to ban them from being brought in. So one of the concerns there is specifically, you know, your inheritance death taxes, as some people call it, that get taken down when you pass away and you're leaving it to your next of kin. That has been, if it is approved in this constitutional amendment, banned in the state of Texas. Same with capital gains taxes, realized capital gains taxes or unrealized capital gains taxes. And one of the things that the current legislature, who is very anti-tax, wanted to do was bake in their ideals into the Constitution. And that way, if a future legislature swings completely to the opposite direction, which is unthought of right now in Texas, but you never know how things change over the years, over the decades, to impose these taxes, they would have to go back, get that 2/3 threshold in the legislature again, and then get voter approval if they ever wanted to come back and issue those taxes that, if approved tonight, will be banned.
And Adam, if approved tonight, could this lower the prices of rent here locally?
I'm not certain about how it would affect the rent. I still think you have these measures, and they are intended to lower property taxes. A lot of times, things can counterbalance, and I think we saw a lot when they initially raised the homestead exemption in previous years. A lot of that was eaten up through different measures to raise property taxes. I also, I think, as we were mentioning before, when you're talking about renters, it's a second order effect. The building owners are certainly responsible for paying that property tax. Whether or not they choose to pass that discount now off to the renters is in their court.
And the ball is in their court.
Exactly. And right, it depends on how much they're getting discounted and how much they feel the need to pass that on to the renters. And yeah.
And again, this is what the numbers are looking like for Prop 11. We were also taking a look at 13. Let me see if I can pull those numbers up as well so that we can look at if there's any change or anything with that race. So we have 13 here. Looks like it's staying somewhat the same. They're still for it.
Yeah, even stronger support at this point with 83% in favor of Texas Proposition 13.
And you know, in the last 10 years, there's been 2 constitutional amendments that have failed. And it makes sense, right? You have 2/3 of each side of the legislature needing to approve these to get them on the ballot. You only need half of Texans then to support it. It makes sense. You have to have that bipartisanship in the legislature. So that's where a lot of the heavy lifting is done. And usually it tends to be a shock in Texas if those don't get approved by the voters because of how much legwork they put in.
Yeah, I wanted to share a little bit of trivia. While preparing for this live stream tonight, I was thinking, how many amendments are in the Texas Constitution? And it was quite the astounding number. It's a very long document and becoming ever longer, potentially by 17 more amendments after tonight. But as of 2024, so just of last year, the Texas legislature has proposed a total of 714 constitutional amendments. Of those, 530 have been adopted, 181 have been defeated by the Texas voters, and 3 in all that time have never even made it to the ballot. So it looks like we could have 17 more added to that 530, bringing the total to potentially 547.
That is a lot. Yeah. Adam, do you know all of those?
I can't go over all of them. No, I did a little research too, and there's some fun tidbits in there in history. A couple of them that got passed by the legislature never made the ballot for fun reasons, like they didn't get it posted in the newspaper in time back when that was a requirement. So
I'd love to see it.
There's a lot of fun history, and that's kind of the way they intended the Texas Constitution to be, this living, breathing document that can get amended when it needs to be.
And change with time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us, Adam. This is going to wrap our section with Adam, and we were going to go to a quick break. Again, I will bring those race cards up full so we can take a look at them. While we come back, we'll be back in about 5 minutes. And we're back, Will, with more election coverage. And this time we're going to bring a special guest out in the field, and it's our Grace Reader. Let's see if she's here to join us. Grace, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Grace, how are you doing? Where are you?
Sure, I'm at Bolden Acres. I'm at a watch party for anti-Prop Q folks.
And talk to us, Grace, about how they're feeling, because the results show that more people are opposed to this measure, at least in these early numbers that we've gotten.
Yeah, so we only have the Williamson County numbers, so folks are not necessarily celebrating just yet. But even before we got those early numbers, the people who are here said that they are very hopeful and fairly confident that this proposition will be defeated tonight. We also had a crew at the watch party that is for this proposition, and those folks are feeling the opposite. So we need to wait and see when these Travis County numbers in to really get an idea of where this vote may go.
Yeah, and as Grace just mentioned, at least so far, we're only getting numbers from the Austin residents who live in Hayes and Williamson counties, so fairly small numbers of voters, as you can see from these vote totals so far. But again, the results show that more people are against this measure than for it. But Grace, just give us the basics about what Proposition Q aims to do exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So Proposition Q is the City of Austin's tax rate election proposition. What does that mean for you? Basically, the City of Austin is asking you to raise your property taxes so that they can pay for some city services. What would those services be? Most of the money would go toward homelessness, so things like emergency shelter or street outreach. They're also trying to pay for things like public health, public safety programs, and parks. We've got a full list of everything that this would fund over at KXAN.com. By the way, if you approved this, it would bring roughly $110 million into the city. So what would come out of your pocket is probably your next question. The answer to that is that for the average Austin homeowner, which means you've got a home valued at roughly $500,000, it would tack $300 onto the city's portion of your property tax bill should Prop Q pass. But I want to be really clear that your City of Austin property tax bill will go up regardless of whether Prop Q passes or fails. If Proposition Q fails, it's simply that you will spend less on your property tax bill, the increase will be less rather, and it would be roughly $100 instead of $300 should Prop Q fail.
Grace, it's kind of fun to hear the
All
people
the
playing
chaos.
pickleball just on the other side of your live shot. Having been to Bolden Acres several times in my time here in Austin, I know that sound very well there.
Yes, it is very lively because there is a funny mix of people who are here for this watch party, people who are specifically glued to this board waiting for the Travis County results for Proposition Q, and then you have folks who maybe don't even know that an election is happening behind my photographer Aiden here, and they are playing pickleball and having a grand time.
That's awesome. Well, Grace, thanks so much for joining us, and we may come back to you before this stream ends, but we don't know that, so hang tight, Grace.
Thank you.
It's nice to have our City Hall reporter, Grace Reader, there reporting live for us in South Austin. Again, she was joining us from an anti-Prop Q watch party, looking for those results to come in. We're waiting again for those numbers from Travis County really to start trickling in.
And let's look at the numbers so far. It looks like there's 30.9% for, and there's a lot more, nearly 70% against Proposition Q.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, these numbers are really coming from those Austin residents who live in Hayes County or Williamson County, pretty small groups within the city itself, because most of the residents in Austin live in Travis County, so we'll wait on those numbers too. But, as we've been talking about Proposition Q and those Texas constitutional amendments that have been made on the ballot, including Texas Props 1 through 17. But if we zoom out just a little bit, I want to go over to Houston because voters there are deciding who will represent them in Congress. And they have not had a representative since March because Representative Sylvester Turner, the former mayor of Houston, died while in office. And the special election to fill out the rest of his term is not happening until today. Well, this race has so many candidates. It has 16 in total. So the chances of somebody walking away without going to a runoff were very slim. I mean, these are some of the candidates that were very well known, including Christian Menifee. He's the Harris County attorney. We have a former Houston City Council member and Amanda Edwards. and a state representative, Jolanda Jones. Those are your top 3 vote getters at this time, and none of them are close to that 50% mark to avoid going to a runoff. So this is going to be very, very interesting to see how closely some of these contests are and really who will make it into that runoff once these votes are all counted. That special election runoff won't happen until probably early next year. So it will be even more time without someone filling that U.S. House District 18 seat there in Houston.
Yeah, well, and I think it's like you mentioned, all of the candidates in this race. I think it's great that so many people stepped up to the plate and tried to fill this seat today. And we're looking at those numbers come in, and I'm sure they will continue to increase as more numbers come in. Like we heard from our news director, the polls are still open and there are still people in line voting.
Yeah, and I'll just point out, too, that in Congress, in Washington there, it's a very narrow divide between the Republicans and the Democrats. At my last check, it's 219 Republicans to 213 Democrats.
Wow.
If this district, which leans heavily toward Democrats, sends someone from that party to Congress, that margin becomes even more narrow. So that could definitely make things much more interesting in Congress, as if it needed to be that way any more so than it already is.
And not only did we want to take a look at this race, but we also have that list of key races. And as you can see, we have a lot of school districts or consolidated school districts. And let's go ahead and take a look at Manor ISD's propositions. We have Proposition A. This one is allowing $359.5 million in funds to support things like campus safety upgrades, facility renovations, and even new buses.
Yeah, and then Prop B is another bond there for $8.5 million to cover some technology upgrades there in the district, and Prop C, $16.5 million to support the construction of a performing arts addition at the Manor High School complex. So let's go through some of those results on these 3 different bond proposals that families in Manor ISD have been voting on this evening. So as we show you there, Austin, Prop Q up first.
They're kind of a scroller, so
Yeah,
they
we'll
flash.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. We've got Pflugerville Mayor.
Yeah, and again, very few votes coming in at this time too.
There we go. Manor ISD Prop A. It doesn't look like we have any votes.
Still no results popping in, but we just showed you Prop A. Prop B is here now.
Looking the
and then
same.
Prop C as well. So no votes to share with you at this point, and results for the Manor ISD.
But we have the Hayes Consolidated Independent School District propositions, and that one is Proposition A for $498.9 million in funds to help with growth, safety, and again, facility improvement, similar to the last Prop A that we just saw. I think if we pull this up, we could see some numbers in this race. Let's wait for that to populate.
Yeah, and one other thing that's really interesting, our Hays County reporter here at KXAN, Sam Stark, reported that this is the first ever tax rate increase put forward to voters there in Hays CISD, and it's a 12-cent increase. And it's intended to create more revenue to offset inflation, boost teachers' salaries, cover rising utility costs, and other district operation expenses, which many superintendents here in our area, of course, note that they keep going up. But there you can see that, at least at this time, with those 41% of votes in,
and
more people were
59% against.
Yeah, more people were against that particular proposition there in Hays CISD.
We also have the Taylor Independent School District propositions. Prop A is for $147 million in funds to support construction renovations and infrastructure upgrades across the district. We also have Proposition B generating $650,000 annually in operational funding to academic programs, support for classroom instruction, and teacher stipends and staffing.
Yeah, and I'll note that Prop A is a bond, and then Prop B is a voter-approved tax rate election. So that's just a little bit of a difference between those two propositions there.
And while we wait for this scroller to get to the results, I think we did have a few numbers in for this specific race. So we got Pflugerville Mayor.
Yeah, just a few votes coming in for that too, for sure.
Still nothing for Manor ISD propositions A, B, and C.
Waiting for those results to populate for sure. Yeah, so I mean, again, this is we're kind of a wait and see game at this point. There you can see Hayes CISD numbers coming in right now for that proposition.
There's the
Taylor as
Taylor.
well. Yeah, Prop A looks like it's more voters are in support of that, as well as for Prop B too in Taylor ISD.
It's looking good for that proposition. Here's Texas Prop 1, and it looks like people are voting for that race specifically.
Yeah, and I'll note that if you are looking for results for a specific race that we are not showing you in these updating carousel of numbers there, go to our website at KXAN.com. We have a full results page there with a breakdown by county and also some of the statewide races of note that you can look and see where people are voting on those particular measures. These are just some of the key races that we're following during this live stream. We wish we could touch on all of them, but that's where a comprehensive results page will do you some good there at KXAN.com.
Yeah, and I can pull that up too so I can show everybody what we are talking about.
Oh, cool.
Let me see if I can find that button. Again, we're here doing things live.
Of course. And, things happen.
Yeah,
and
things
we're
happen.
learning and we're showing, and we appreciate you all joining us here. Again, this is Will Dupree and Esmeralda Zamora in the KXAN Plus studio, bringing you live streaming coverage of election results for this November 2025 election.
And here you can see what Will was talking about. If you go to our homepage, we have a live blog of Central Texas races, as well as statewide races. And if you scroll to the bottom here, we have, these are populating live. So we are getting some numbers and information on this website. As of 8:13 p.m., we have 80.52% voted for Prop 11.
And that is what the seniors' homestead exemption increase that both Adam Schwager and Dylan McKim have been joining us here in the studio to talk about in the last, hour and a half or so. Can you believe we've been going on for that long?
No, it doesn't feel like it. It feels like we just started.
I love it.
So yes, if you visit our website, KXAN.com, you can also find all of the other races that we are not focusing on here, specifically in our live stream. Again, let me pull up those key races we are focusing on here. It's all of the Texas propositions, as well as a few mayoral races and some independent school district propositions.
Yeah, and if you notice on that live blog too, it's not just some of the races here in Texas and Central Texas that we're focusing on. If you scroll back up just a little bit, we're also showing you some of the...
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, some of the updates there for, I think that's the mayor of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Virginia governor's race. A lot of people were watching to see which party might take that particular election. And at least at this point, Democrat Abigail Spanberger is the projected winner of the Virginia governor's race. So we're not just tracking what's happening here in Texas and Central Texas. You can find all those resources for those big races that are happening all across the U.S. on our website too.
And you can also see that Travis County has surpassed 100,000 voters on today, Tuesday. According to officials, the county has over 200,000 total votes.
Yeah, that is impressive. I wish that number was even higher because we have a lot more eligible voters here in Austin in particular. I was among those that was voting today, and I'm sad to say that I was the only one there whenever I was voting, and 2 other people came in after me, but it's good to show that number too.
Yeah, and we also heard that there are still voters out there in line trying to get their votes on that ballot. You can see here we have some photos of students that were waiting in line at the poll on the UT campus.
Yeah, look at that line.
Look at that line.
That's amazing.
Got them there entering the door. Look at that line wrap around the building.
I mean, we love to see a dedicated voter. Nothing warms my heart more than that. I have to say that. That is my kind of nerdy obsession, is voting in elections.
And elections.
I live for this stuff, so it's good to see that.
And we have Travis County's turnout surpassed 80,000 voters and was closing in on 200,000 votes in total.
Cool. Love to see it.
Cool. Well, let's look at some of those key cards again that we have. This one is the one that kind of carousel that you were talking about. This one is populating as we are talking, and Kyle Mayer, 50% of the votes in already.
Yeah, we're wanting to let people know that we're tracking that race too, and along with some of these school district proposals, bonds and tax rate elections that we've been tracking for the past few weeks. Some of the results are a little slow to come in, particularly there at Manor ISD, but of course we're going to be showing you those numbers as they're populating throughout the night.
Thank you. And we're going to go ahead and take a quick break and leave this continuing as a little carousel for
Nice.
anyone who is interested. And we'll be back in 5 minutes. And we're back here, Will, with our live stream election coverage here on KXAN Plus. It's been a night. We started at 7 p.m. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's always exciting for me to cover elections. As I mentioned earlier, I'm nerdy enough to admit that I live for this stuff. So it's very exciting to follow and hear what voters are thinking about some of these things that we've been covering for, if not months, then weeks.
Yeah, and throughout our short breaks, we've been looking at a carousel of those election cards and the numbers trickling in, and a lot of them are still at zero. Why do you think that we haven't gotten results for those races?
Yeah, so we've been trying to get some answers about that behind the scenes for you. And just to give you a sense, from what we're hearing, it seems that there are still people who might be voting in Travis County. They were maybe in line or waiting up until that 7 o'clock mark when the polls officially closed. And the early vote results, so that almost 2 week or so period, people getting to vote just, in this past few little bit, we have not gotten those numbers just yet. And it may be because they are waiting for everyone to finish voting in line, and then they'll share those numbers out in hopefully a relatively short amount of period. So we're just waiting on those to come out to give us a better sense of where Travis County falls. Again, the biggest area here.
Yeah, and that can be later tonight. That can be early in the morning. We just don't know, and we're here waiting, right?
We just want to see them. So please
we
pass
just
them
want
along.
to see them. Pass them to us. Well, we do want to go over a few of the key races that we are covering here. Let's start off with Austin Proposition Q.
Yeah.
Bring that card up.
And again, that is a tax rate election that the Austin city leaders brought forward. And when we've looked at those results a little bit earlier, looks like we have gotten some more votes in.
Yeah,
So
it
you
looks
see
different.
52% in there. It looks like Travis County is sending out some of that early vote total, which we love to see. But this gives us a better sense of where voters felt. So early we were seeing really just the numbers from Austin residents in Hayes and Williamson County, which are a small amount of people, I should say. But from the results that we're looking at here with 52% in, still the opposition to this proposition, this tax rate increase, is standing at about 67 to 33%.
Yeah, and we just spoke to our reporter, Grace Reeder, who is out at a election night victory party with the opponent in this race, and she kind of gave us a overview of what it's looking like at the party and everyone sitting waiting for the results to trickle in, just as we are here on our live stream.
Yeah, this is a pretty notable difference with more votes coming in. So again, we'll be watching this for sure, and you can keep obviously track of that on our website at KXAN.com and our upcoming newscasts, KXAN News at 9 and KXAN News at 10.
Yeah, and we have our first constitutional amendment, Texas Prop 1.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can populate that card. Give me 1 second.
And just to reiterate it for everybody, if you've been jumping in and out of our live stream, if you're just joining us, voters all across Texas had 17 constitutional amendments that they had to either approve or reject. And looks like Texas Proposition 1, the results are populating in now. And the support for it is standing pretty strong still, almost at 70% of the vote there, nearing that million vote mark as well. So pretty strong support for creating an investment fund to support the Texas State Technical College. And our Capitol Bureau reporter, Dylan McKim, was in here earlier really breaking down that this is going to offer dedicated money to support technical vocational education and training for what is a growing part of our state's workforce.
Yeah, and the TSTC campus or campuses network 11 campuses offering career-focused education in fields like welding, HVAC, and manufacturing. Prop 1 affects students, employers, and taxpayers statewide.
Right.
And our second one is Texas Prop 3. I'm still having technical difficulties with these cards.
That is okay. So that proposition would create a new constitutional amendment that would deny bail to people accused of certain felonies. Those are things like murder, aggravated assault, and indecency with a child. And based on the results that we're looking at here, with even more votes coming in, voters largely are saying they support this by 64% to about 35% against it.
And it looks like we're hearing some live reaction from the Prop Q watch party that Grace is at.
Oh, nice.
Let me see if we can listen to that here while they get set up.
Okay, and again,
Okay.
this is at Golden Acres
Acres
there in South Austin off South Lamar.
There's Grace.
Yeah, there's Grace helping to get some of those microphones set up. It looks like they have some of their anti-Prop Q signs propped up there on the stage, and we'll be taking those remarks as soon. I know that a lot of those voters there and the people who are back, who were saying they were against Prop Q, are excited about the results they're seeing tonight with more.
Sounds like they're going to start saying something. So
My name's Bob Cole, and I have a morning radio show and have in Austin since the 70s. Yeah, I used to say all the time, I still say, ain't it great to be alive in Austin, Texas on this historic night? Ain't it great to be alive in Austin, Texas? Yes, sir. A very historic night. Thank you not only for being here, but, you know, sincerely, you're hardcore. Many of you have done heavy lifting, telling others and voting, and Matt has got some numbers, as rumor has circulated through the crowd, that I think you're going to like. But first, just one of the many people that have given so much to make this happen in 7 or 8 weeks. I don't want to bore you with a long Bob Cole story, but I've been doing this a while. And 7 or 8 weeks ago, just confidently and arrogantly, I said, there is no way that this thing doesn't pass. There's no way. This is Austin. The activists, the union vote. Austin's going to do it. I think you might know better, but first, one of the folks that made that maybe not happen, would you make welcome, what a great American, incredible citizen of Austin, Texas, Adam Lowy. Adam.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to report that Prop Q has been defeated in full. And let me make very clear, this was a blowout victory. 30+ points. Ladies and gentlemen, we had the Austin City Council, 10 out of 11 members, say we should raise taxes $100 million. We had the Travis County Democratic Party on a very close vote, but a vote nonetheless, support that. When those two things happen in this town, almost every single time, anything will pass. But here, we had a broad bipartisan coalition that stood up and said, no, we are not standing up for this. And in the words of Matt, enough is enough. The spending must stop. We do not need more taxes. And this city council needs to get the message to get their house in order. Quit with the $1 million logos. Quit with the trips to Japan. Quit with wasting the taxpayer money. And fix the budget and do the right thing. So thank you all. Huge victory, and I'm honored to be a part of it. Folks, want to introduce Stephen Brown, co-chair of Save Austin Now, who is running for this city council in District 1 and who will be winning a race in about a year.
Thank you. Hey, I just want to thank everyone for coming out, showing your support. This is really and truly what happens when nonpartisan people of Austin come together and show this city council that they're out of touch. They are truly out of touch with what's going on, and I think more people need to be talking to each other the same way Matt and I came together and said, hey, let's talk to each other and figure out what's going on, what can we work together with. That's what the city council needs right now. They need more people who aren't stuck in echo chambers, who aren't just here to take trips and spend our money the wrong way. They need to be listening to us as constituents, and we need to make sure that the city council know this victory, they're out of touch with the people.
That's right.
So, here's Matt.
Hey, Matt!
Tonight is a victory for taxpayers. And those kind of victories are pretty rare in our city. I think we all know that. This is a taxpayer revolt. As Adam said, enough's enough. Our city council and our mayor already have said many times affordability is a crisis. Well, folks, you do not make affordability better by raising taxes. Children know that.
That's right. Here, here.
So look, I want to celebrate tonight. Tonight's a victory for taxpayers, but if we're really serious, what tonight proves is that we're not going to make things worse. Not making things worse does not mean we're making things better. And so, as Andy Dufresne said to Red in Shawshank Redemption, if you've come this far, perhaps you'll come a little farther. Tonight is a first step. Tonight is a step saying we are not going to accept a $110 million tax increase at a time when affordability is a crisis, when our city council is unserious, when they're wasting money every single hour of every single day. We're going to say no. We're going to say enough's enough. But tomorrow is a new day. Tomorrow, our coalition, this coalition, which is the broadest based, most bipartisan coalition in the history of our city, is going to say, we will not accept anything less than an independent audit of our city budget. Am I right? Yep. We will not accept 1 penny less for public safety than we had today. Am I right? So, the question is, we all know where taxpayers are. The question is, has City Hall learned a lesson tonight? There's no education in the second kick of a mule. If we have to kick again, we will. They're going to learn the lesson either tonight or in the future. Taxpayers have had enough. Am I right? Have taxpayers had enough?
Yep.
Okay. So, all we want is a city that efficiently delivers services, that fully, and I mean fully, supports public safety, that addresses homelessness in a way that measures outcomes, where we try to improve people's lives, where we don't incentivize homelessness, and where taxpayers are respected. That's not too much to ask. No. Folks, Austin has the potential to be a world-class city. We're the 13th largest city in the country. It's time we start acting like it. The wealth is here. The business community is here. The vibrancy of this city is here. It is time our city government is as good as our city and its residents. It is time. Yep. Enough is enough. We're going to stop the insanity. Tonight we showed that. This is a great victory for taxpayers, but tomorrow the real work begins. I want to thank so many people. My wife Amy, who will be welcoming our first child in 28 days. I want to thank the absolute legend.
And this is what the numbers are looking like for that Proposition Q in Austin. And as we saw, they were already cheering for this proposition. So,
and what we were watching was those who are opposing Prop Q. They are claiming victory at this time. However, we here at KXAN are not able to project a winner right now. Our team is watching these numbers very closely. Still, more votes are coming in for this. So again, stay with us as we continue our coverage, especially on the upcoming KXAN News at 9, which you can watch on the CW Austin.
And right now, this is what our Texas Proposition 1 votes are looking like, with 45% of those votes in. And it looks like almost nearly 70% for this amendment.
It's looking like a good night for all these constitutional amendments that were on the ballot. There were 17, and right now the vote counts have them all passing by pretty comfortable margins here. Very similar numbers to what you're seeing right there with Proposition 1, which creates new investment into the Texas State Technical College system.
And this is Texas Proposition 3. This is the mandatory bail denial. And it looks like it's nearly or about 63% for this proposition, with 52% votes in for this one.
Yeah.
And if I can shuffle to the next one. We have Texas Proposition 4.
And this is the one that would create even more investment from the state to water supply sources and water infrastructure improvements. It would allocate $1 billion per year for a 20-year period. So that would be a total of $20 billion. And half the money raised through this would fund new water supply sources for the state. The other half would be spent fixing old infrastructure and building out new.
And we also heard from Jeremy Mazur with Texas 2036 earlier in our stream about this one in particular. So we had a special guest and a few of our Capitol reporters discuss this proposition with us as well. We have Texas Proposition 11 with 52% votes in for this one. And this one has to do with the increased homestead exemption for disabled or seniors over 65 years old.
Yeah, and this homestead exemption would go up from $10,000 to $60,000. And by the looks of these numbers, it looks like a blowout in support of Texas Proposition 11.
We also have our Texas Proposition 13. This one was an increased homestead exemption. We have some numbers in for that one with 52% of votes in.
Yeah, even stronger numbers there.
Even stronger, you're right. The next one that we have was the proposition on dementia research. This one was Texas Proposition 14. Let's go ahead and look at what those numbers are. Still nearly 69% for this specific proposition. Will, what was this proposition really focusing in on?
Yeah, this would create a $3 billion Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas, otherwise known as DPRIT. That would study dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and other brain-related conditions. This is going to be very similar to the CPRIT program in Texas, which is focused on cancer research and prevention.
Now, our next race we are following is Texas Proposition 15. This is the parental rights race, right, Will?
It's a very simple constitutional amendment, very short in language. It affirms that, quote, parents are the primary decision makers for their children. And this is showing strong support for that one, too.
And I do want to bring up the Senate race that you were specifically covering with us here. And this is what the numbers look like for this so far.
Yeah, and this is the congressional race there.
Oh.
There is a Senate race, a state Senate race that's in a different part of Texas. We're not showing those results, so I know it can be a lot. This is a key congressional seat there in Houston, House District 18. This is picking who will serve out the rest of the term for the late Congressman Sylvester Turner, who died earlier this year.
And still no candidates reaching that 50%.
Right, so what was really difficult for all these candidates is that there were 16 of them in total. So to be able to reach that 50% mark to avoid a runoff was going to be tough, especially with some big name candidates like Christian Menifee, Amanda Edwards, and Jolanda Jones. And as you can see, that the top three vote getters, it may look like that Christian Menifee and Amanda Edwards will advance to a runoff that will happen early next year. So we're still waiting to see who will fill out that term left by the late congressman.
And it looks like we have 3 Democrats in the lead right now.
That is correct. I'll say it is a very heavily drawn district for Democrats in particular. So it's no surprise really to see those top 3 vote getters as Democrats.
Yeah. We just got a Facebook comment asking about Proposition Q. We did just look over that, but I can bring it back up for us to talk about one more time before we wrap things up. And we also just heard some live footage from that party against this proposition. It looks like we have a almost 67% against for this proposition, right?
Yeah, and the people that were speaking at that watch party were claiming victory over this. Again, we at KXAN have not been able to project a winner in this race, so you'll have to stay with us as more votes are counted. But if you want to bring us back up, just me and you, Esme, I was going to mention that our digital data reporter, Christopher Adams, who is our elections expert around here at KXAN, he was wanting to share some projections from KXAN, and this is particularly for the city of San Marcos. So he was saying that KXAN can project that propositions B, E, K, F, G, H, J, and L, I'm not reciting the alphabet there, we can project that those have all passed and that Prop I has failed. That's our projection with that too. So if you're in San Marcos and we're wondering about those results, those are some of the other things we're tracking.
Yeah, and another race we were tracking that I do have a full screen for is the Hayes CISD proposition.
Yeah.
This one, it looks like we have about 60% against this proposition.
And this was the first tax rate election brought forward by this district. And as you can see here, the numbers show it's heavily much more against this measure than for it.
We also have a live scroller of every single race that we may not have focused on here on our stream. I'm going to have that play for just a little bit so we can take a look at some of the races and what the numbers are looking like.
And this is the tall task of covering this particular election. So it ranges from those constitutional amendments that every voter in Texas weighed in on, some of those local propositions that are just specific to cities like Austin's Prop Q. We also had city council races in some communities, mayoral races in other towns in our area. We also had some of those congressional races that are happening in Houston. So it's a wide swath of stuff to follow.
City council races, school board races.
Yeah, there you go. I mean,
lots of things.
There's no possible way for us to do all this, but this at least gives you a sense about where things stand on some of those key things that we've been following all this evening.
Yeah, and well, we have been here since 7 p.m. We've
That we
already
have.
reached that 9 p.m. minute mark, so it is our time to go here. That's going to do it for us here on KXAN Plus. And thanks so much for hanging out with us. Will, thank you for sitting with me throughout this entire stream and walking through these big decisions on the ballot. Polls are officially closed, but the night's just getting started. For all of the results, Will, where can our viewers catch that?
Easy and simple. KXAN.com. We have the full election results there, and KXAN News at 9 is beginning on the CW Austin, so you can catch even more depth right there.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.